This episode had a lot of turning points, interesting turning points for a lot of characters on the show whom we haven't really seen do that much until now. Like a lot of people getting screen time or more screen time where they're doing more things they did before. Um, or at least a couple of them, like Dan Cassidy, aka the Blue Devil, and Jason Woodrue's wife, whom I had actually forgotten was on the show until this episode. I'll get more to her and Jason and stuff later. But I like the flavor of this show. Oh, and also Matt Cable. Matt Cable, we got to see more of him doing stuff. Some interesting stuff that I wasn't expecting because until now he had shown up and he would say some things, have like Goo eyes over Abby, and then go away. But he didn't really do much as a character on the show. But he did a lot this episode, and we found out that he did a lot in the past too. So, this was a very interesting character because I like seeing this was a good episode because I like seeing characters I haven't seen that much before do things and become more of an active presence on the show. So that was nice. I like seeing that. These are the people I just mentioned, the three characters, we hadn't seen much of them until now. And I like that. But, I will begin with one of the characters who has had a presence on the show, even though the show is not really centered on him, as we might have thought, is Swamp Thing. I liked in this episode, he was being really cool with his powers. I like seeing him fight those guys Avery sent to get him when he put his hand on the tree and they made the spikes come out and fly at people. I was like, awesome use of power, Swamp Thing. I was really impressed. I thought that they would just have... Swamp Thing was already using his powers pretty well. Like, he's able to make vines grow and stuff. But he's getting more creative. And I'm glad that the writers are thinking of more creative things for him to do. In the first couple of minutes, it reminded me of the old Swamp Thing comics, where Swamp Thing would be wandering through the swamp and he would run into like some monsters or some people he would have to fight. And I was curious to see if we would see more of Swamp Thing doing that throughout this episode. But that was about it in terms of his action scenes. But I thought that was cool. I was like, you get points for creativity and originality, Swamp Thing. I love that. Touching the trees, making the spikes go out. I was thinking the only thing he could do to take that up to the next level would be to make those spikes poisoned. That would be a way to make sure it got the job done. Because it incapacitated those spikes incapacitated those people. Didn't kill them though. Although, maybe Swamp Thing didn't want to kill them. He just wanted to hurt them to make them go away. Because I think they survived. I forget. I just watched the episode. They were in the hospital later on, but I think they lived. So maybe his goal wasn't to kill them. I am curious in the show, or I had been before, how brutal they'd make Swamp Thing. Like, would he be killing people or just roughing them up? But, so far Swamp Thing has killed. Like, he tore that one guy to shreds in the other episode. The one who appeared like he had been infected with the rot, he, like, ripped that guy's body parts, like, right off the body. So here, I'm wondering if he didn't kill those people because he just failed to kill them, or maybe he didn't want to. That was unclear. But, he certainly hurt him a lot. I certainly wouldn't like a bunch of tree spikes to the face. And let's move on to Matt Cable, a character, both Matt Cable and his mother, Lucilia, the sheriff, are very sinister people. In the last episode, when the sheriff killed that guy who threatened her son, it didn't dawn on me until this episode. I know when he said he saw, like, Matt's boat out there when Alex, was killed, he was, like, making it seem like Matt had done it. Like, he could say, I saw Matt's boat out there. That means that he's the one who killed Alex. I thought that he was just saying that to be a jerk. I didn't think that he actually, like, thought that Matt had killed Alec. I thought he was, like, taunting the sheriff or just saying stuff to her because he was being a jerk. Or I thought that Matt might have been out there that night, but he was just out there doing something else. I thought that he was still supposed to be, like, a good guy character, so I thought he was out doing something else, and maybe the guy was going to try to frame him or something. But in this episode, Matt basically admits, like, yeah, I was paid off by Avery to take Alec out. And I was like, oh, so he did do it. That guy was telling the truth. He wasn't trying to be a jerk. He was being... I think that guy already was a jerk, but he was a jerk who was telling the truth. The one that the sheriff killed last week. So, both the sheriff and her son are evil cops. I didn't think they would go that route. Interesting. I thought that they would make it so that one or both of them would be, like, the good characters in the show. We already saw, like, the sheriff, Lucilia. We already got, a big taste of her evil in the last episode, the last couple of episodes. And good job by the actress, Jennifer Beals. I'm not saying I don't like these characters, But I'm just saying, they're bad. But him, he was just, Matt until now was just this dude, just this sheriff guy who had a crush on Abby. But, he's taking Avery's money, and not just taking Avery's money to do anything, to blow up people's boats and kill them. It's like, wow. I was shocked. A twist and turns this episode. Deepening of the characters, deepening of their relationships. And I like the mother-son scene when she was slapping him. And, they were arguing. We got the family drama, too. I was like, wow, Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing's going to places I didn't think it would go to. And then, we see a big character development or more story beats for Dan Cassidy, who has yet to become the Blue Devil, but probably will right in the next episode. We've seen that start of that change, when Jason Woodrue, I didn't expect him to play a factor in reviving Dan from the coma. That was interesting. And at first I was like, why is he putting stuff? Is he trying to kill him so he can't wake up and confess to something? Like, what was Jason's motivation for putting that fluid in, the bag, the water bag? I don't know much about hospital terminology. I don't know what that, the feeder bag that's supposed to be feeding water into Dan. I wasn't clear at first why Jason was tampering with that. But then, I found out he was just experimenting. He wanted to have proof that the mutagen and his work on the mutagen would, yield results. And it did. It not only revived Dan from a coma, but it also apparently is activating some powers within him. However, I'm not really sure if the powers, which I'm sure will turn out to be Blue Devil powers in the next episode, I'm not sure if those came from the mutagen or if there was some supernatural stuff going on already within Dan that the mutagen activated. Because we saw the flashback, or maybe it was a dream while he was in the coma where he was talking to the Phantom Stranger on set 8 years ago, and the Phantom Stranger basically, was saying things to him to, I guess, manipulate him, push him into a certain direction. There's a destiny for you, that kind of stuff. So I don't know if the Phantom Stranger, because he can see because he's the Phantom Stranger, knew it was going to happen, that Dan was going to get powers because of the chemicals, or if something supernatural had already happened to Dan in the past, that was going on with him, and the chemicals and the mutagen just activated it or just woke him up. Like, it's a combination. Like, if it's supernatural with the science thing on top of it, or if it's all science, like all the mutagen that Jason put in his feeder bag, his liquids bag, or whatever you call those bags they put in people in hospitals. But interesting stuff. I liked it. I liked the character interplay got, changed a bit. We found out, we always knew that Avery was like this. He was the evil rich businessman. We see that archetype in many shows and soap operas. There's like a rich dude in town, an older rich dude, usually at least one, but there can be multiple ones on the show like this, who, because they're so rich and well connected, they're able to influence a lot of things and pay people off, stuff like that. Avery is that guy on this show, but he has his hands in more things than we thought. He is the center of a lot of every evil thing that goes on in this town. Matt told his mother, Lucilia, who is, Avery's lover, whom I think he cares about at least a little bit, or, that, Avery has a file on her of all this stuff that he's done that he could use against her at any time, which she didn't know about. He paid off, Matt, his money and influence pushed Matt to do something horrible. And because of that money, that horrible thing happened to Alec in the first episode where his boat exploded. He has Jason on the payroll. There's Jason and his wife. His wife is affected by that. Liz, her father, was threatened by Avery. And Liz herself was threatened by Avery's goons. Avery's wife, Maria, is, married to him and, is mixed up in his stuff too. And of course, Abby was raised by Avery and is mixed up in it now. His money and his wealth and his influence and evil is touching everybody on the show. I probably forgot a few characters, but I'm sure he got them too. And I'm very curious to see what's going to happen, as I mentioned before, with Jason's wife. I don't understand what her character is. I like Jason's wife, but since they created her for the show, I'm wondering, what purpose she will serve. I think we've seen in this episode that she does not like Avery, and she doesn't like her husband Jason being involved with Avery. She's afraid that Jason's involvement with Avery will take him down a dark direction. She's trying to tell her husband to steer him away from that. And so I think what'll happen is, and I think Avery knows at this point, because that she doesn't like him or doesn't want Jason to work with him, or he will know that soon. Because when, Dan came to their house to ask Jason for help and they had that big confrontation on the front lawn, after she put that injected, Dan to get him to calm down, she was glaring at Avery and her disgust was obvious on her face. And so I think Avery might get her out of the way. He can see that, Jason's wife is trying to, he wants Jason to work with him because Jason has a breakthrough. But I think he'll see that she might pull Jason away from him, or she might, confess to the cops or, expose the whole thing. And because Avery's that kind of guy, he might bump her off. And if he does, that's going to push Jason over the edge and turn him into full supervillain. He's kind of proto-supervillain right now. But I think he will turn into the Floronic Man out of rage or anger over what happened to his wife at Avery's hands and turn into full-on, plant-based supervillain. I think Jason's going to become the ultimate final boss of this first season of the show. Because we all know, DC fans know who Jason Woodrue is in the comics. And power-wise, he's the only person on the show who can actually be a threat to Swamp Thing as an actual adversary physically. And so I think, by the time we get to the last episode or before it, he's going to turn into the Floronic Man. And I think rage and grief and a thirst for vengeance over his wife being killed will be what happens. Or maybe Avery will manipulate it into some way where it'll be like Swamp Thing who accidentally kills Jason's wife. And so Jason will hate Swamp Thing. Something will happen. But I think that's going to be the case. Because I can't see why Jason's wife is on the show. Because Jason Woodrue doesn't have a wife in the comics, or he didn't in any of the comics I've read. She serves a purpose. But anyways, can't wait. Next episode is, I'm sure, going to be the debut of the Blue Devil and other stuff. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like it on YouTube and subscribe to the channel because I appreciate your viewership, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.